and you're constantly searching for answers. You're constantly searching for solutions and ways to get ahead, ways to adjust what's not working. It's just a puzzle, and you're the only answer. If you're finding the wrong answers, eventually, if your motivation is there, you'll find the answer. So you just got to kind of stay the course and, see what happens. See what happens when it gets to crunch time, and see who folds and who makes the wrong decision and who sticks with the game plan.
What's going on, y'all? It's Vannesia, Darby, Randy C. Vons, and JAVI, and we are the Entourage. Once again, I know I say this every single week, but we can't thank y'all enough for tuning in every week and listening to these episodes, y'all. Like, we really appreciate it, and our goal is that we hope that you learn something. We hope that you can take something into your career. And y'all know, if y'all been rocking with us for a lot of these seasons, you know we like to dabble into industries that are adjacent to the entertainment industry, but still touch them. And today we're going to do that with professional sports. Randy stepping on the spotlight today was Zack Evenden, who is a tennis player extraordinaire. He went to Florida A&M University, shout out to FAMU, and he was number 2 in the country in high school. He has since become a coach, and he has even coached Frances Tiafoe, who is one of the best tennis players in the world. Not even just the country, but the world. And y'all know Randy loves some tennis, all right? We hope that you enjoy this episode today. Again, if you want to see somebody under the spotlight, let us know. Shoot us an email at theentouragepodcast@gmail.com or shoot us in the DMs at the Entourage Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. We would love to hear from you. All right, enough of me talking. Let's go ahead and step under the spotlight.
Hey everybody, you are kicking it with the Entourage. I am one of the co-hosts, Randy C. Vons, and today I am super excited because we have, y'all know how much I love tennis. We've had Kamal Murray on here, and today we have another tennis coach. I'm super excited to introduce to you all Zack Evenden. He has worked with Frances Tiafoe. He has been ranked himself and played and has been touring with the ATP with Frances over the years, and has done some amazing things in tennis, being just another person of color in the sport that has seen a lot of evolution thanks to people like Venus and Serena, but it's still growing continuously. So we're super excited to highlight him and the work he's doing and has done, and just share his overall heart and passion for the sport and for seeing more representation in this sport. So Zack, thank you so much for joining the Entourage. We're super excited to highlight you today and appreciate you giving us some of your time.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
No problem. So I came across you from seeing your work with Frances Tiafoe. I too am a tennis player, nowhere near the level of Frances. I just play for fun recreationally at the park. But when I was on my quest searching for African-American players, beyond just the obvious Venus and Serena, I came across Frances, and I've been seeing him rise. And then I found out you were his coach, and meaning you obviously have had something to do with his success. So we'd love to talk to you about that. But before we get into, what you've done professionally, let's just talk about, your love for sports, period. Where did that begin? What age were you when you began even diving into sports?
I would say probably about 6, 7.
So you started young.
Obviously, yeah, 5, I probably started football, soccer, in England, how we call it. But yeah. It was soccer for me all the way up until I was like 13, 14. Okay. And then I started taking tennis more seriously. But I had started tennis when I was younger, about 7. So I started taking it more serious when I was like 13, 14.
Nice. What made you take it more seriously? What changed your love for the sport?
I was pretty decent at soccer, and I had a couple trials. I was playing for the academy QPR team, which is a pretty good team from London. They have a great academy, and then I had like a trial for Chelsea and Tottenham, and it didn't go so well. And my dad kind of used it as a platform to get me to go into a single man sport.
So Dad redirected you just a little bit.
Yeah.
How important was that for you at that age?
It was pretty important, and I loved it. I didn't look back. I definitely embraced it, and I like the idea of being in control of my own outcome. You know,
Yeah.
winning and losing, not having to rely on a team. You know, you got no one else to blame. So I
Yeah.
like that. So, you know, it was a lot better to handle losses.
I want to ask you this before I get too deep, but like that you just said something right there. People don't realize like tennis is you're all out there by yourself, and of course on occasion you have doubles where you have a partner, but it never really
Mhm.
goes beyond that. For the most part, majority of your career, if you know pursue it professionally and play singles, you're playing alone. How
Yeah.
has that sport impacted your, I guess, independence as a person, period, and help you, I guess, rely internally when it comes to problem solving, opposed to having teammates to lean into or other people, you know?
And big time. I think it helps your development. It helps you problem solve, as you said. Um, you know, and you're constantly searching for answers. You're constantly searching for solutions and ways to get ahead, ways to adjust what's not working. It's just a puzzle, and you're the only answer. You know,
Yeah.
so if you're finding the wrong answers, eventually, if your motivation is there, you'll find the answer. So you just got to kind of stay the course, and that's always kind of been our philosophy. You know, when I was working with Frances, is just stay the course. You know, see
Mm-hmm.
what happens. See what happens when it gets to crunch time, and see who folds and who makes the wrong decision and who sticks with the game plan. You know, and nine
Yeah.
times out of 10, the person who does that is the person who comes out on top.
I want to ask you this. Because you learn to be so independent in tennis, has that ever impacted you, or has that ever served as a challenge, I'll say, to you in external relationships and times where people are like, oh no, you can lean on me for support, or you should have told me you needed help, or ask, you know, has that ever created that type of problem, you know, for you personally, or even players that you coach?
Yeah, I think it's a big problem overall.
Mm.
You know, I think, you know, people develop ways, oh, sorry, players develop so many ways to, you know, figure things out on the court by themselves, which they have to do that, you know, sometimes it is difficult for them to rely on help. But I think, you know, everyone handles it differently. But I think it definitely poses somewhat of a problem. I guess you just have to be conscious of it, you know, and really know when you do need help.
Let me ask you this. I'm gonna stop saying that, but I'm going in a whole different direction than I planned originally, and I think this is gonna be a good topic. So I'm excited to dive into this. But are there ever times when you, as a coach, sitting there on the sidelines, like, man, my player, I have some advice for them, I have some input. But if you watch tennis a lot, players don't always call for their coaches during the game, and it's almost like this thing sometimes. I don't know if it's like a thing of like, well, I want to be independent, I want to do it my own, and I want to problem solve
Mm-hmm.
myself or what. But are there ever times when you just like sitting there like wishing, like, man, I wish they would just call on me because I have the right advice, whether it's, you know, actual tactical advice or just advice for their mental, you know? Yeah. How do you deal
Well, I
with those?
mean, like coaching is not really allowed, but obviously, you know, you're constantly trying to help your player as much as you can
Mm-hmm.
from the sideline. So you're saying certain cue words that maybe you know you say often in practice, things like that. But it's not easy. It's not easy because there is no line of contact. Like in the women's, in some tournaments, you can talk, but in men's, you're not allowed.
Mm.
So you know, unless it's Davis Cup. So you know, if you haven't practiced and you haven't spoken about what needs to happen, chances are it's not going to happen. So you have to be very thorough, and then what you do say is limited because it can't be too technical and it can't be seen as coaching. So
Yeah. I
so
want
it's kind of just got to be two words type thing.
to, yeah. Does that ever, because you're a father, you know, congrats on that. You're a father
Thank
to a
you.
young, how old is he?
He's 1.5. He's turning
Wow.
2 in August.
Wow. Is he a Leo?
He is. He
Oh,
is.
we like him already. I'm a Leo as well. So yeah. So I guess it's kind of it could be too early then to ask this. I may have to come back to this question later in life when he's a little older. But I just wonder how being a coach and kind of being a parent is similar in the sense that like you're ultimately trusting this thing that you've invested into, that you've poured your wisdom, your knowledge, and your experience into, and you're trusting that it's going to pay off, that it's going to take the time you spent studying and gaining experience so that you can help develop them. And you have to trust that they're going to take those tools and use it properly. And again, you don't get to stand in the trenches with them though when it's time for competition. Just like you won't be able to walk to your child to school and see if he's really, making you proud the way he is at home and all those things like that. So how do you think coaching has prepared you for fatherhood?
I think it's been a great help preparing me. It gets you to try to buy in a little deeper than the surface, get to know the person, get real personal, figure out what makes them tick, figure out what motivates them, figure out what gets them down, figure out what breaks them down. Just overall, just studying, and just really figuring it out. And if you are looking for those things, it's going to help you do your job way better. So I find myself constantly trying to get to know whoever I'm working with on a more deeper level, because I feel like how you deal with problems is how you're going to deal with problems on the court. Like it's instinct, it's nature. You're not going to live life one way and then approach a problem in tennis another way. It's going to come out in your own mannerisms, your own personal way, but it's going to be very similar to how you live life. That's what I believe, and I feel like it's prepared me a lot because I'm always trying to go a little bit deeper. I'm always trying to understand things a little bit more and ask myself if I could have done this better, could I have delivered this better, could I have, if I explain something to one child 4 times, I'm asking myself, okay, can I do it 3 times next time? Or can I get it in 2 times? So it also becomes a game. If you're putting yourself and you're really trying to better yourself in that way, it literally does become a game.
Yeah, I love that. And like again, we've spoken about like you get to that point where you have to be like, okay, I've done my part. Now what they do is up to them, right? Another big part of being in tennis is that, and this is life in general, you go through transitions. You coach somebody for a season or you train somebody up for a season, then you have to let them go on to their next. And then I think again, similar to parenthood, where you train your child up and then eventually they go off to college and they go off and start their own life. So how do you deal with those transitions peacefully? Holding on to what you all have, but still being human enough, like, transitions are change, and change feels different for each person. So how do you deal with the changes that comes with transitions?
For me, I try to embrace them as much as possible, because like change is a good thing. If you see it as a good thing and if you embrace it, I feel like getting out of your comfort zone is just vital. I feel like it's so important for just us as humans, like growing, as people and maturing. And I mean, you could be 40 years old and still have plenty more maturing to do. And I feel like if we, all keep embracing the change and embracing the new, instead of seeing it as a burden and fighting it, then, it's going to help us a lot better on the journey.
Definitely. So throughout your career, both as a player and as a coach, you have been coached, you have coached, So how have you taken the changes that have come with those different seasons and made the most of it, to propel you to the next place?
Trying to basically just always put myself in their shoes, always trying to talk on a level with them, try not to talk down, or make it like instruction based. Like I, try and create that relationship with the player to where it's like, we're figuring this out together. We're a collective. We have a problem. if you lose, we lose. If you win, we win. You know, but everything is to build the player. But it's all a collective. That's kind of how I kind of approach it. You know, I know it's tough to, you know, respond or apply yourself sometimes if you're just constantly being given instructions, and you know, it's so much easier said than done. So if there's more of a togetherness feeling, you know, it provides a better platform or a more easier platform to get it right sooner, I believe.
Yeah, I love that. And you know, just one more question really quickly about coaching. As a coach, it could be hard, I'll say, and I'm not speaking from experience, I'm just imagining. It could be hard watching your players not, you know, play at their best that day, knowing that they have it in them, knowing that they have the tools, but maybe they're off mentally, or the world doesn't see what just happened behind the scenes before they went on the stage that has them like in another space, you know? Or it could just be a bad day in the sense of, you know what, I've been playing for the last few days and today I'm tired, so I'm not as sharp as I, you know. What do you one say to keep them encouraged and keep them lifted even through a loss and through the challenge, you know? And how do you make them how do you keep them from allowing that last moment to outshine the beautiful moments that led up to that moment, you know?
Well, it's tough because, you know, tennis is a sport of errors. But in order to shine and fulfill your potential, you kind of gotta be more bigger picture orientated than errors or points or wins and losses. And you know what I've found over the years, you know, when we've had a couple dips in the past with me and Frances, you know, it's better to create that bigger picture and put that bigger picture in the, you know, in front of us, and keep it there and be conscious of it all the time. And then it doesn't matter whether you lose that point or you lose that opportunity or you lose that match, because it's all leading to the bigger picture. It's how you lose, how you respond after that point. And I feel like if you're able to stay conscious with that and stay on target, then, you know, you're going to keep moving forward. But if you become so win-loss orientated, you know, that hole gets deeper and deeper, you know, and it starts to suffocate you. But it is hard, and especially when, you know, you got pressures and, you know, everyone's trying to support you, fans. I mean, these days you've got people sending messages on Instagram and, you know, all that hate and stuff. And it's a lot harder because there's a lot more social media involved. There's a lot more that players have to deal with than, you know, than they had to back in the day, you know. So I feel like just keeping the goals simple, and keeping the goals consistent. You know, you can't be changing up your goals every match. You know, it's got to be a bigger picture, and you've got to stay the course.
Speaking of that, you know, a lot of players who have won early on in their youth, like Naomi or Bianca, or even now Emma Raducanu, you add to that list. You've seen those dips after their wins of Grand Slams, and you're seeing the media sometimes eat them up. You're seeing the fans eat them up, you know? And so a lot of players now are, especially on the WTA side, you're seeing them, even Shelby Rogers open up about the hate mail and Sloane Stephens and what comes with that. As you just said, you know, social media does make it more difficult. I don't know if I want to say, that's a difficult one, you know, because I've seen it up close and personal. I see it just as a fan watching it. So what, just overall, what are your thoughts on just one, fan engagement, and I guess the pros and cons of it now with social media? Because on one token, you get the gratification, you get the congratulatory messages, or you get to know that you are an inspiration, but leaving that portal open to engage with fans also means you leave room for the people who have negative things to say that does impact your game. You saw Naomi Osaka took a really bad loss to Indian Wells after a fan said you suck. And while somebody else may look at it like, well, people go through that every day. It's just like,
Yeah.
do you go to work and somebody tell you suck and you have to just power through like nothing happened? I think Will Smith said it so greatly at the Oscars, like in this industry, there's this fine print that we've all somehow signed without knowing, and we've accepted the fact that being in the spotlight puts you in position or in alignment for attack, which I don't necessarily believe is fair, because you're just great at what you do. You're an athlete who want to play your sport, and you're so well that it propels you to a big stage, which then leaves people who are not pros giving their expert opinion, on something they're not experts at. So so just how have you navigated that as a coach for your players, and what advice have you given players about the importance of fan engagement and how to, safely trot that line?
I think it's like everything, it's, you got to have the good and the bad. You got to have the praise and then the negativity. I feel like it comes with being in the spotlight. I feel like the best ones are the ones that deal with it the best. And I feel like it's like everything else, is balance. If you're doing well, you're going to hear it. If you're doing bad, you're going to hear it. And it's just a shame that social media has become this monster when you are doing bad. But, I get, and it's terrible. And some of the things being said are just, vile and vulgar and just plain rude. Some are racist, some go a little bit deeper. I can only imagine some girls are called, big or slow or fat, and some of it can be real hurtful. But I just feel like, it's just like everything else. It just comes with balance. And I feel like, you're in that spotlight. So you're the one who's going to be seen. So if you're trying to be treated like everyone else, it's unrealistic. You are a professional. You are a what's the word I'm looking for? An influencer. You are a role model. And with that comes a whole heap of problems, and you've got to be able to embrace the good and embrace the bad, and just keep it moving. I think, and take it in your stride. Don't think too much of it, because you're going to win and you're going to lose. It's not going to be the last match you're going to lose. So it's not going to be the last time you're going to hear that. Yeah. And instead of making it out to be this beast, it's just, okay, this is the other side. Today was a bad day. This is the other side. All right. Let me try to do my job a little bit better next time. And if I do, I'm not going to hear this side. And I feel like, it's just, I guess it's perspective. Like I've never been in their position at this level. So I can't tell you how bad it is or how it's affected me, because I haven't been in that seat, in that hot seat before. But from what I've experienced with Frances, it's just, the good and the bad, and just take it in your stride, and, just keep trying to do as best as you can in that moment, and try not to buy in, try not to control or manage these factors that you just can't control.
Definitely. I love that. And, mental health has been big. And so you've seen players recently who have struggled with the cyber attacks and stuff, who have just said, you know what, I just want to come out here and have fun. And even after a loss, you're seeing them have, I think standout would be, again, Naomi at the Miami Open that she was runner-up in. And she, she's just having fun. I think that's something that's so key. And I think with tennis, it's that sport where, again, you're constantly learning from the trials and errors that you make daily. And you have to get to that place where you're not necessarily playing to win, but you're playing to do your best. And if you happen to win, great. But if you lose, it's also okay too, and you learn from that,
100%. 100%. But when you are losing, you still need to find love and joy and happiness in the journey. The match isn't the journey. The match is a part of the journey. And if you're gonna hate the journey every time you lose a match, then it's gonna be a tough road ahead. So I don't know many players that turn around a bad career into a good one by, putting themselves in a hole. It's like you still have to have that optimistic mindset. It's going to get better. Otherwise, it's not going to get better.
Yeah. And I think that's again key right there, what you just said. You see in tennis, they talk about all the time, the commentators talk about it, like the body language and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
How much does that impact your game, your body language, your like the stance you take mentally?
Huge. It's, if you feel good, you're going to be good. If you're walking confident, you're going to be confident. You may not be 100% confident, but you're going to be more confident. And I feel like just kind of like, like I just said, like embracing it, like finding joy in what you're doing each and every day, with the good and the bad. You have to love the good. If you hate the good and you fear the good that much, then the sport isn't for you, or sport in general isn't for you. It just comes with the territory. Federer, Novak, and Rafa, I mean, they're the three greatest to ever do it. And if you look at their point stats, they've only won like 57% of points in their career. So, I mean, they've lost 43%, and that's a huge percent. It's not far off 50. And imagine every point they've lost, and they've played tons and millions. And if they treated every point like it was the end of the world that they lost, then they wouldn't have that 57. It'd be the other way around. So I just feel like that mindset and outlook is so important in this sport when it's so mental.
Yeah. One last tennis specific question I want to ask, and then again I want to jump back into your career as a player, aside from coaching. But in tennis, you often hear about just getting that one extra ball back sometimes, and a difference that can make. Because in tennis, you're not just competing against the other person, you're competing against yourself. And so sometimes competing against yourself, you could be so in your head that you got that wide open shot and you can still choke and miss it, because you got so many pressures. Meaning that if you're the person on the side who gets that one extra ball back, you still give you increase the odds of you overcoming just by a hair. And sometimes that hair is simply all you need, How do you take that same rule though and you apply that to life?
It's I guess you just gotta try and apply it to life, as in, like, when you're hit with a negative situation or something knocks you down, you just get back up. Like, you're put in an awkward position on the court, you got to make that ball. It's the same thing. There's a job that needs to be done. Something's happened, something's occurred. How you respond is going to define you, and you've just got to keep going. You've got to keep getting up. When you're knocked down and when you're put in awkward positions on the court, you have to keep getting that ball back. Make one more ball and see if they can, win the point, but don't give it to them. You can't stay down. You can't just lie down. Just keep fighting. And just really, but it takes a lot of character to do that. And it tests you sometimes.
Definitely.
It's so much easier said than done.
Yes. So perfect segue now, because again, you as a coach, it's easier for you to tell a player what to do. But you as a player, you have to take this advice yourself at some point, So tell us about you, the athlete, growing up in sports in London. For those who don't know, it's like, just tell us what it was like for you growing up,
It was tough. I wish I had gotten into tennis a little bit more earlier. So it was tough. I felt like I was always, chasing and trying to catch up. But it was, it was tough for me because, I was a little hothead. I would show my emotions on the court, but I would always give 100%. Like, for me growing up, like, there was no such thing as tanking. There was no such thing as coming off the court and saying I didn't try. That didn't really exist when I was, 15, 16, 17, 18, being competitive and playing. You just didn't really do that. It wasn't really a thing. And like I said, with social media now people are starting to see a little bit more on and off the court, and you're starting to see certain attitudes. It started to become more of a thing. but yeah, you know, obviously I used to play my heart out. I love to be aggressive. With that comes a lot of risk. So, you know, yeah, you know, the highs were really good and the lows were really, really low sometimes too.
Being a coach now, but having started off as a player, what advice would you give your younger self?
Stay the course. Like, you know, stay the course. If you win this match, it's not going to define or decide your career. It's not going to make you and it's not going to break you. But how you respond when things don't go your way in this match is going to define this match. So I feel like that's what I would say to myself for sure.
Yeah. And I'll say this, not trying to even go there, and I don't know how it is overseas. You know, unfortunately, I haven't traveled the way I need to. My passport is just real dusty and ain't been used, so I can make it to London. But you know, one thing I think we've all seen in the world, even as recent as the Ukraine situation, is that black is black everywhere. You know, and I could say in America, there's already this connotation with being an African American man that we're a threat or that we're angry and aggressive and this and that. So in sports, sometimes as men, that aggressiveness, that anger, that cockiness is celebrated, you know, and it's just like it's praised. But sometimes for us, we don't get that luxury because it's like we're being too aggressive or we're being, you know, a threat. Did did the color of your skin ever serve as a threat for you on the court? You know, or did it make it
Many
difficult that you have to
times,
contain yourself even more because you were black?
many times. You know, I've experienced racism in a bunch of different ways. You know, and it's out there. It's just out there. You know, it's just one of the things that comes with, you know, being black or being half black. But either way, you know, whether you're half, whether you're a quarter or a third, you're black. You're different. So that's it. You're all under the same hood,
Yeah.
regardless. But you know, it is, and especially being in London, you know, not as many, you know, there weren't as many black players playing in that time, especially in London. I mean, if you're if you're black in London, chances are 90% you're picking up a football. You're not picking up a tennis ball and a tennis racket, you know.
And by
So
football, are you saying American football or?
soccer, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I
Okay.
mean that's you know, especially me, you know, I went to public school. You know, I was the only person who played tennis at a competitive level in my entire school.
Wow.
So I mean, it's, you know, and that's a public school with years going all the way through from what, like 12 all the way through to like 16, 17.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you know, that's how uncommon it is. You know, it's more of, okay, if you were homeschooled or you went to a private school, you know, then, you know, chances are you're going to get more competitive tennis players in there in that environment. So having that environment and being where I was from, it was a little harder, but you know, but it was good. It was good. It was different.
Definitely. As a player, did you ever get into doubles and get a chance to experience, you know, playing with a
I
consistent partner?
played doubles, but
Uh-huh.
I didn't value it. I didn't respect it. Should have a lot more, especially in ITF juniors. It would have helped if I had won a lot more doubles matches since it goes towards your ranking. In
Hmm.
college, I had to love doubles. That was where I kind of learned to respect it a little bit more, and it counted. It was very, very important. So you had to, or else you're not going to be played because
Yeah.
the coach doesn't want someone who doesn't care about a win. So,
Hmm.
you know, you have to learn to do that. So I had to get with the program once I got to college. I eventually did, I think. So
So you played in college, and you started around 14 or 15, which meant you kind of came into college late in a game. But you went to FAMU, which has a history for people of color, if I'm not mistaken. Althea Gibson went there, as well as Kamal Murray, who, for those who don't know, is only the third African American coach to win a Grand Slam, right? Was a
yeah, I
player.
think so.
And so you're right there next to, some tennis greats. What was it like for you? And that was your introduction to America, right? As far as coming.
Well, my first introduction was actually junior college in Kansas.
Okay.
I went there for 2 years, and then I went to FAMU, which was a complete opposite. So I experienced the best of both, and it was good. It was great. FAMU, I loved it. Loved the culture. Loved the vibe. But I also really enjoyed Kansas. At first, I didn't, and then over the years, especially being so isolated, where I wasn't exposed to enough. Like coming from a city and then being in the country, it was a lot of isolation, which did me a lot of good actually.
Okay.
And then obviously FAMU was a lot more busy when I got there.
Yeah. And then again, coming from tennis where you learn to be independent anyway, how did that help you, with the isolation time?
It definitely did. I mean, you're equipped with the tools to deal with it. It's just whether or not you are conscious of that or not, or whether you're just fighting it. And I embraced it for the most part. I would complain, but I embraced it for the most part.
Yeah.
And for my tennis, it did a lot of good for me.
Good.
So I was fortunate.
So coming up when you did, again, I know for me, Venus and Serena is what I had. I learned about Arthur Ashe when I was on my quest finding African American tennis players. But yeah, beyond Venus and Serena, it wasn't a lot of us to look up to. So who were the players you looked up to that pushed you along the way in tennis and made you want to be great?
I loved Rafa. Idolized Rafa when I was younger, when he first burst on the scene. I really loved Tsonga, Monfils.
I know. I'm sad to see he's retiring, but
yeah.
He's had a great
I'm glad
career.
to see him going out on his own terms as well. Though. I think that's huge. Also, Berdych. I was a huge fan of Berdych. Who else? Who else would I say? Started to really love Murray towards the end there before he really got hurt. Like, once he won Wimbledon, I was a Murray fan, but I wasn't before.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of media that kind of portrayed him as a bad guy as well. And especially once I got to meet him when I was with Frances, I mean, it's just like, how did I buy into all this media? The guy's such a good guy. But yeah, I loved Murray. I love me some Murray as well.
That's an interesting point you just made too. The media has their way in which they portray people, and then now that we're in an industry and we get to know people for ourselves, what has been some of your biggest surprises, I'll say, hopefully positive ones, but people that you've been able to come across in real life, that you may have only known through media before?
So many. And you'd be so shocked. And every time I get taken back, like, every time I've walked past, we've played Federer now a couple times, and if I walk past him, he'll nod his head, and it's like, he recognizes that he's played against us, and like Rafa does the same, Novak, and Murray will, we've practiced with him, and I'll have conversations with him, and it's like, it's just amazing, and it just takes you back, and it just makes you be so grateful for making it this far and experiencing what I've had a chance to experience. And it just, it's just amazing, truly amazing to witness that and get to know them a little bit better than just what you see in the media, because the media couldn't be further from reality. In every way. With all these guys.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode. As always, you can like, share, comment, subscribe, rate, do all of those things. We would love to hear from you and to hear your feedback. Go ahead and join us on Instagram at The Entourage Podcast, as well as like our Facebook page, The Entourage Podcast. Also, visit our website, theentouragepodcast.com. Sign up to get our emails, and we will see you all next time under the spotlight.